Now we got to make a rosette before we can do anything else with that soundboard. Rosette has to happen before the bracing and arching happens. And I think I'll have contrasting pieces that form an octagon. That means 22.5 degrees. This will be walnut. Okay, we've got juniper and walnut, and we're going to make a mess. Brad's will help us out. Thought I'd spare you the gory details. Brads are in. All seams are touching. I have to tweak them in, as we can see. And then my last step to get final downward pressure. I don't usually deal with such finicky work. I do like the details of the job, but like I said, this is my first embarkment on a guitar project. All kinds of things were going through my head. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to route out my circular dish, if you will, dye some epoxy, and cut some fancy shaped pieces and dump the epoxy in, and then set those pieces in. And then I got another plan, and then I got another plan. And I realized this guy, what I thought was Japanese cypress, turns out to be juniper. Smells just like, not just cypress, but cedar. It smells just like aromatic cedar, but even better. But he chose that for his tuning board, and I figured we might as well carry the same feel all the way through. For what it's worth, that's our attempt number one. Well, it doesn't look like much now, but sandwiched between these two veneers are the wood that I was using yesterday. And I'm going to feed it to the outer line of the ring that I want to make and stop the machine. Hot glue this washer in the center because that's hollow in there. That's just two pieces of veneer, and I don't want the hole changing size as I set up to cut the inside of the ring. And I'm not going to risk keeping my fingers crossed, but I'll be keeping them crossed. I'll keep my toes crossed. Okay, that's a relief. That's circle number one, but this needs to be a ring. I wish you could smell that juniper, man. It smells better than aromatic cedar. So I've got these strips of dark walnut in there, and my aim is to pre-bend them around a boiling pot of water and clamp them in place, dump the water out into a smaller one, and pre-bend the inner ring, and let everything cool down, and then I'm hoping that they'll glue in place nicely. And that water is hot. I just burned my finger with a glove on it. So yeah, some brads, pre-steamed, pre-bent, pre-cooled, pre-shaped, brads bent over, apply inward and downward force, it's glued, and I now have the centerpiece to fit. Very, very pleased. It's not going to look anything like that once it goes through the thickness planer. You'll see all the colors. Now this one, Get some brads in there, bend them over, and tweak it tight. Okay, that doesn't look like much now, but let's go see. Before. Alright, it looks to me like we're down to about a 1/16 of an inch, and that's where the fretboard's going in. So if that needs to be plugged, I'll plug it, but that will not need to be. And we can choose which side we think is prettier. Maybe I'll take a little bit more off here. I like knots. And we got a prominent one. We got several. I would say I'll make the decision when the sun's completely up. Sweet. Very happy. Very happy. Gee whiz. I don't want to alter the circumference of this and slightly taper it so it slips in the slot that I'm going to make a little bit easier than we're at a sharp corner. Well, what I'm trying to do now is sink this baby in, and I've got my outer perimeter. This is spinning on an axis, which is basically a screw with the head cut off. And my aim is to use this bloodwood as a border around, at least on the outside, hopefully on the inside as well. Just tiny little strips that go in as it's getting glued in. So all I can do is my best. So the rosette is lined with this 2 layers of this really, really thin bloodwood. There's nothing wrong with making your own putty, as long as it's the same wood. And that's what I'm doing here. Collecting fine, fine dust to mix with white glue, and just fill in those hairline little gaps. Yeah, that's enough. Well, what I'm trying to do now is sink this baby in, and I've got my outer perimeter. This is spinning on an axis, which is basically a screw with the head cut off. And my aim is to use this bloodwood as a border around, at least on the outside, hopefully on the inside as well. Just tiny little strips that go in as it's getting glued in. So all I can do is my best. Now we'll readjust to get rid of that stuff. Well, the putty's come up a little bit lighter than the actual hue of the bloodwood, but I don't want to add any red dye because I don't want any seepage into the hinoki cypress around the perimeter. We've got an area that I had to refill in with 2 strips of that wood, that stuff. And that's been super glued in. The rest has all been tight bonded in. And I've got an area there, a couple of areas I don't want to hit. So let's do it. This will get covered by a fretboard, but what the heck. Fill it in.